Alright, before starting this video, I love the iPhone X. It has a lot of things I really like, but still it's not perfect. And even though making this list wasn't so easy, it's well worth knowing things that aren't so great on the latest flagship. And well, starting things off, the very first thing has to be the most hyped thing about the iPhone X. Face ID. Now don't get me wrong, Face ID is great, it works, even works in complete dark areas, but it's still at a very early age. Face ID still can detect you when facing direct sunlight, and you need to be at a proper distance and a proper angle for it to detect your face. And even though it works when you're wearing a hat or some shades, it's still not good enough to replace Touch ID. It is a little bit slower than Touch ID, which is also a little frustrating, and even though Apple pushed the new technology at least better than Samsung did, but again, it still wasn't good enough to replace Touch ID. If we had both side by side, it would have been a complete different story. One of the things I hate the most with Touch ID is once it rejects to unlock your phone, it just stops right there. So after that, I can be right in front of the phone waiting for it to detect me, but it's not gonna do that unless I slide up, and in that case, I will end up losing any notifications that were on my lock screen, or I have to lock the device and unlock it once again. And if you do that too fast, it does trigger Apple Pay, so you do have to lock your phone, wait a few seconds, and then unlock it once again. And the second most annoying thing is the time it takes, definitely slower than I think even the first generation of Touch ID. So sometimes I just feel like I'm waiting forever. And even though Face ID works really good in the right environment and the proper distance, but sometimes let's say I have my phone on my table and now before I want to use it, I have to either pick up the phone, point it towards me and wait for it to detect me, or I end up leaning in until Face ID detects my face. So just something that might not look that big of a deal honestly gets pretty frustrating very fast. So yeah, the easiest solution, Apple should have kept a fingerprint scanner somewhere on the phone. The only thing I like with Face ID that you won't really have with Touch ID is how it blocks your notifications until it detects you're the one looking at your phone. Besides that, there isn't really any added benefit with Face ID. Moving on, months after the release, there's still third-party apps that don't support the screen resolution. And these are apps I use almost on a daily basis, even apps from big companies and even some banks. And YouTube Studio itself is one of them. It still has the black borders on the top and the bottom. It's just extra space they're missing out and it doesn't look good to the user. Number 3 would be design. It's still pretty much the same design we're seeing ever since the iPhone 6. This phone does have a glass back and a better finish, but honestly we still need to see a complete redesign from Apple, and especially this phone being their 10th anniversary, Apple needed to take design a lot more seriously. Number 4th, and probably the biggest reason, is price. This phone is $1,500 in Canada, which is about $1,000 in US. And as far as I know, that is not cheap for a smartphone. And especially for a smartphone that is only 64GB in storage. And if you're planning to upgrade the storage, it's gonna be an extra $120. And let's be honest, this phone is capable of doing a lot, and especially just talking about the camera side, it's a 4K camera which is able to record at 60 frames per second. And besides that, you're able to get some stunning pictures out of it. And all of this is gonna eat up a lot of storage. So 64GB storage for such a capable camera just isn't enough. And especially when Apple is putting such high prices on their smartphones. And the number 5th point is adding on towards the topic of price. No fast charging right out the box. So even after paying $1,500 for this phone in Canada, you're still not able to get fast charging within the box. It's an extra $100 and some Apple wants you to pay to buy a power brick and a USB Type-C cable, just so you're able to fast charge your iPhone. And these are 5 things that bother me the most when buying an iPhone X. Besides no headphone jack and just a okay-ish battery for such an expensive device. Now besides that, this phone is absolutely amazing. It's a lot of fun to use and has a lot of power. But let me know if there's anything you don't like on the iPhone X in a comment down below, and subscribe for more content like this. And as always, thanks for watching.